I need you to understand something before I take you up that wall with me. Before I put you on the rock face in the dark with your fingers bleeding and your arms burning and 500 feet of nothing below you, I need you to understand that I have climbed alone at night before. Many times. I am not someone who made a reckless decision out of boredom or arrogance or the desire to feel something. I am someone who has spent 11 years learning rock the way a musician learns an instrument, the specific language of it, the way granite speaks differently from sandstone, the way limestone holds cold longer, the way a crack in basalt tells you exactly how much weight it will accept and how much it won't, the way darkness changes all of that, compresses it, makes it more intimate and more demanding and more honest than daylight climbing ever is. I have free soloed routes at night that most experienced climbers would not attempt in full daylight with a full rack. I tell you this not to impress you, but to establish the baseline of what I know and what I am capable of so that when I tell you what happened on that wall, you understand that I did not imagine it, did not misinterpret it, did not manufacture it from fear or fatigue or the particular anxiety that heights produce in people who are not used to them. I was 530 feet up a granite face in the dark of a July night, alone, completely alone, and something above me was dropping pebbles. Not randomly, not dislodged by wind or the settling of stone. Dropping them, one at a time, with pauses between them, with the specific deliberateness of something that knows where you are and is making a point. Take me back to the start of that night. Let me build the whole thing for you. It is the third Saturday in July, one of those nights that the American Southwest occasionally produces in summer, where the temperature drops fast after sunset and the air goes from the thick, dry heat of the day to something cool and almost silky by 9 o'clock. And the sky in that elevation and that distance from any city is so saturated with stars that it functions as its own light source, a diffuse luminescence that, once your eyes have adjusted, lets you see the rock face well enough to read its features. I have been climbing this particular formation since I was 23. I am 34 now. It is a granite dome in the high desert, a significant formation but not a famous one, not in any guidebook, not with established routes in any database I know of, which is part of why I love it. This rock is mine in the way that a particular stretch of river is a fly fisherman's, not owned but known intimately, known in the way that repeated contact over years produces a knowledge that goes below the conscious mind into the body itself. My hands know this rock. My feet know its friction and its angle and its specific texture at different elevations. I have climbed this dome 17 times, twice before at night. Never had a single experience I couldn't explain. I leave my truck at the pull-off at 8:45 p.m. Dusk is still bleeding out of the western sky, the last of the orange fading to deep purple, and I sit on the tailgate and I eat and I drink water and I watch the light go. I have my chalk bag, my climbing shoes and a stuff sack to change into at the base, a headlamp I intend to use only at the base and for the approach, and the particular internal state that experienced free soloists develop before a night ascent. Not calm exactly, something more precise than calm, something I can only describe as the sharpening of everything into the immediate. The approach is a mile across slick rock, flat and open, lit well enough by the stars and the three-quarter moon that I don't need my headlamp, and I turn it off after the first 100 yards and walk in the natural light. I know this approach by feel. I have walked it in rain, in wind, in the specific disorientation of dawn when the light is too new to trust. I walk it now easily, and I arrive at the base of the wall at 9:30 and I sit and I listen to the rock for a few minutes, which is a habit I developed years ago and which I could not fully explain to anyone who doesn't climb, except to say that rock has a presence and listening to it at the base before you commit to it is the same instinct that makes you pause before entering a room that feels wrong. I listen. The rock sounds normal. The rock sounds like itself. I change into my climbing shoes. I chalk my hands. I begin. The first 200 feet of this route is the section I know best. a long diagonal crack system that starts at the base, runs up and right, then back left, providing continuous opportunities for hand jams and foot placements that are as reliable as a ladder once you know them. In daylight, I move through this section in about 20 minutes. At night, I move more deliberately, more slowly, checking each placement before committing weight, letting my fingertips read the rock for what my eyes in daylight would simply see. This is the particular intimacy of night climbing. You touch more. You feel more. You build the route inside your body rather than reading it from outside. I move through the first 200 feet in 40 minutes. I am fully warm, fully in it, the specific mental state that free solo climbing produces. All of it collapsed into the immediate, the next hold, the next movement, the conversation between my body and the rock, nothing else in the world. I reach the ledge at 200 feet that breaks the route, a horizontal shelf maybe 8 inches wide that runs for about 12 feet and allows a rest. I stand on it, my back to the rock, my heels hooked on the outer edge of the shelf, and I look out at the desert. The moon is high. The desert floor below me is silver and immense and quiet. I can see my truck at the pull-off, small and dark, and I can see the road beyond it, empty, and beyond the road more desert, more silver, fading to horizon. There is no wind. There are no sounds from below. I am completely alone out here in the way that is the specific reason I come to places like this. The completeness of the solitude, the way the world shrinks to this rock and this sky and the vertical space between them. I look up. The next 300 feet is where this route becomes serious. The crack system ends and the route moves on to open face, featureless slab with small edges and friction smears, the kind of climbing that demands absolute trust in the adhesion of rubber to rock and the specific mental state in which that trust is possible. I know this section. I know it well. I take a breath. I chalk my hands again, and I continue upward. I am at approximately 280 feet when I hear it. A small sound, brief, descending. The specific small mass high-frequency tick of a pebble hitting rock on its way down. It passes me on my left side, barely audible, and hits the wall below me a moment later with a slightly larger tick, and then it is gone, fallen away into the dark below, and I am still, one hand on a sloper hold, one foot smeared on a friction edge, perfectly still, listening. My first thought is geological. Rock exfoliates. Granite sheds, especially in environments with significant temperature variation between day and night. And this is exactly that kind of environment. A pebble dislodged by thermal contraction in the cooling rock, falling. This is ordinary. This happens. I file it, and I continue upward. 3 minutes later, another one. Same side, same small tick of a falling pebble, passing me on the left and hitting below. I stop again. I look up. The wall above me in the moonlight is featureless and still. There is no wind. A pebble dislodged by wind from a feature higher up would be accompanied by sound. The puff of a gust, the slight change in air pressure on my face that wind at elevation produces. There is no wind. There is no sound except the pebble. I think about thermal contraction again, and I build a version of this that still holds, and I move up. At 310 feet, I stop climbing, and I press myself flat against the rock, and I think. Because in the 6 minutes since the second pebble there have been 3 more, and they are not random. The interval between them is not the random interval of geological process. Geological process produces pebbles on a distribution that has no pattern, some close together, some far apart, the whole shaped by the specific physics of exfoliation and not by anything that would produce the rhythm I am hearing. The rhythm I am hearing has a pattern. 7 to 9 seconds between each pebble, consistent, regular enough to notice, variable enough that I second-guessed it through the first few repetitions. But I am at 310 feet on a silent wall in still air, and I am a person who pays meticulous attention to pattern as a survival practice, and the pattern is there. Something above me is holding a pebble for approximately 7 to 9 seconds and releasing it. Holding, releasing, holding, releasing, 7 to 9 times a minute, 5 times in the last 6 minutes. I look up. The wall above me extends another 220 feet to the summit, smooth and pale in the moonlight, and it shows me nothing. No shape, no movement, no silhouette against the star-saturated sky. Whatever is up there, if something is up there, is either lying flat on the rock or sitting in a feature I can't see from this angle, or is positioned at the summit itself, which is a 100-foot wide flat dome of granite that I know well, that I have sat on a dozen times at the end of a climb, and from which it is absolutely possible to lean over the edge and drop pebbles onto the face below and hit a specific point on the wall with consistent aim if you know the wall's geometry. I know the wall's geometry, and from the summit, aimed at the approximate line I take on the upper face, a dropped pebble would pass me about 3 feet to my left. Where these pebbles are passing me, the question I am facing, pressed against a wall at 310 feet with no rope and no partner and no gear beyond my chalk bag, is a question about the nature of what is above me. If it is a person, I need to understand who and why. People are the variable that introduces the greatest complexity in this situation because people are unpredictable in ways that rock and weather are not. And a person on the summit of a remote formation at 10:30 at night who is dropping pebbles onto a free solo climber below them is a person whose motivations I cannot read from here and which range from the benign and strange. A fellow climber who arrived by a different route, who perhaps knows I'm here and is being odd about it, to the other end of a spectrum I do not want to fully articulate while I'm 300 feet off the ground with no rope. If it is not a person, then I am in different territory I have no framework for, territory where my 11 years of experience and my deep knowledge of this rock and my total comfort in darkness on vertical faces gives me no advantage because the category of explanation has left the domain of everything those things have prepared me for. I keep climbing. I want to tell you I made the decision after careful deliberation, but the truth is that the decision was made for me by the logic of my position. I am 310 feet up a free solo route, and the options are up or down and down at this point. In darkness, on a route I know well, but not as well as up, is not obviously safer than up. Up is known. Up is the summit. Up is the flat granite dome and whatever or whoever is on it, and the descent trail that leads from the summit back to the base in my truck. Down is 300 feet of reversing moves in the dark on a face I have never descended, and if what is above me is something that intends harm, down puts me on the wall longer. I go up. The pebbles continue. Every 7 to 9 seconds, one at a time, each one passing me on the left with a tick of small mass in motion. I count them as I climb. I am using the counting as a focusing mechanism, something to keep the part of my mind that wants to catastrophize occupied with arithmetic while the rest of me climbs. By the time I reach 350 feet, I have counted 19 pebbles since the beginning. At 370 feet, I count 20, 21, 22. And then they stop. The stopping is worse than the falling. I am at 370 feet, 60 feet from the summit, and the pebbles have stopped and the silence above me has a quality it didn't have before the pebbles started. An occupied quality. A silence with something in it. I am moving on pure open granite now. No features. Just the angle of the slab and the friction of my shoes and the pressure of my palms flat on the rock and my breath, which I am keeping measured, slow in and slow out. The breathing of a person who is not panicking and is actively choosing not to. I climb the next 30 feet in this silence, and I can feel, in a way that is not mystical and is not metaphorical, but is the specific animal sense that humans retain when the situation demands it, the presence of something above the rim of the wall above me. At 400 feet I stop. I am 30 feet below the summit rim. 30 feet of open slab, and then the lip, and then the flat dome. I stop on a good edge, two solid footholds, and a positive side pull for my right hand. And I look up. I look at the rim. I look at the line where the pale granite of the face meets the star-dense sky, and I watch it, and I wait. And for a long time nothing changes, and then it does. A shape at the rim. Not dramatic, not sudden. It comes into view the way shapes come into view in darkness when you are patient with your eyes, when you allow them to adjust and accumulate detail instead of demanding resolution immediately. A shape at the rim. At the edge of the summit dome, leaning out, or lying prone with the head over the edge, or positioned in some way I cannot fully read from below. Something at the rim, at 10:30 at night, looking down. I do not call out. I have thought many times about why I didn't call out, and I think the reason is that calling out would have been an acknowledgement, would have been me opening a communication with whatever was up there, and I was not ready to do that. Was not certain that doing that was safe in a way I could not have explained by logic, but which my body was certain about in the pre-logical way that the body is sometimes certain about things. I do not call out. I look at the shape. The shape looks at me. It does not move. It does not drop another pebble. It simply looks, and I simply look back, 30 feet of vertical granite between us, and I am aware of the 500-foot drop below me and the 30 feet above me and the night all around me and the shape at the rim, and I make the last calculation I make on that wall. I climb the 30 feet. I have climbed harder moves in worse conditions, and I climb these 30 feet in less than 4 minutes, and I come over the rim, and I come onto the summit dome, and I stand up, and I look. Nothing. The summit dome is empty. 100 feet of flat pale granite, bare and open, and I walk it end to end, and I look at every inch of it, and there is no one there. No gear, no chalk, no scratches in the rock from shoes that don't belong to me, no evidence that anyone was here. I walk to the edge I climbed from, and I look down at the face below, and it is blank and silver in the moonlight and empty. I walk the full perimeter of the summit dome, all 100 feet of it, all 4 sides, and I look down every aspect of it, and there is no one on any of the other faces, no shape descending by another route, nothing. The summit is empty, and the rock around it is empty, and the desert below is silver and still. I sit on the summit for 20 minutes before I descend the trail. I sit and I listen to the silence, and I look at the stars, and I try to build the explanation that lets me go home with a story about a strange night on the rock, and nothing more. A loose geological feature above the route that shed pebbles at irregular intervals that my pattern-seeking brain organized into regularity. A shape at the rim that was a feature of the rock itself. A dark inclusion or a shadow from a depression in the granite that my frightened brain assembled into a figure. I build these explanations, and I hold them up, and I look at them, and they are not convincing, but I need them to get off this mountain, so I carry them with me down the trail. At the base of the descent trail, where the trail meets the slick rock approach and the rock wall rises above me, I stop. I stop because I am looking at the base of the wall, and I can see the area directly below the line I climbed, the fall zone, the area where anything dropped from the face would land. And in this area, spread across a 6-foot section of the base, there are pebbles. Not the random scatter of geological debris, not the accumulation of years of exfoliation spread across the full width of the base. A pile. A specific, concentrated pile of small granite pebbles, roughly centered below the line of my ascent, too organized for chance, too deliberately placed for any process I know, sitting at the base of the wall in the moonlight like something set down carefully by something that knew where I would be climbing. I count them. I don't know why I count them. I count them twice to be sure, crouched at the base of the wall in the desert dark, my fingers touching each small stone, and there are 22 of them. I climbed 310 feet before I started counting, and from there I counted 19, and then 3 more before they stopped. 22 pebbles. Every single one of them accounted for. Every single one of them on the ground below, exactly where they should be if they were dropped from directly above, from the summit rim, by something that had a very precise understanding of where I was going and a very deliberate reason for making sure I knew it was there. I have climbed 3 times since that night, all 3 times with a partner, all 3 times in daylight, all 3 times on routes that are established and populated and that have no features from which a summit position could command a view of the full face below. I have not returned to that dome. I will not return to that dome. But I think about it in the specific way you think about unresolved things, in the specific texture of something that looked at you in the dark from 30 feet above and knew exactly where you were and chose to let you know that it knew and chose, in the end, to let you go. I think about what it means to be known like that. I think about the pebbles on the ground. I think about the counting. And I think about the shape at the rim, patient, still, watching me climb the last 30 feet, watching me come over the edge and then gone. Not fled, not descended, not retreated, just gone, as if it was there and then was simply not, as if presence and absence are for whatever that was just a matter of choice. 22 pebbles. I kept one. It is in the ashtray of my truck. Sometimes on long drives I take it out and hold it, and I think about the hand that held it before mine, 7 to 9 seconds at a time, 500 feet above the desert floor, in the dark, patient as stone, dropping them one by one to show me what it could do. Story number 2. If you have home security cameras, if you have a system that saves footage, if you are the kind of person who has invested in the specific peace of mind that comes from knowing your home is monitored, and that peace of mind is one of the reasons you sleep comfortably when you are away, I need you to hear this before you go to sleep tonight. Because that peace of mind, that feeling of safety, that specific comfort of remotely checking in on your property from a hotel room 2 states away and seeing everything quiet and normal in yours, that is not what I got when I checked mine. What I got when I checked mine was a recording from midnight, a recording that my system dutifully captured and timestamped and uploaded to the cloud, a recording from the exterior camera on my front door and the interior camera in my hallway. And in this recording, on a night when I was 1,000 miles away and had been 1,000 miles away for 36 hours, I watched myself come home. Not someone who looked like me. Not someone who borrowed my jacket or walked with a similar gait or whose face in the low resolution of a security camera could be mistaken for mine at a distance. Me. I watched myself pull into my driveway in my car, which was in my driveway where I had left it, which had not moved because I took the airport shuttle. I watched myself get out of my car and walk to my front door and put a key in the lock and go inside. And I watched the interior camera pick me up in the hallway and follow me down the hall and lose me as I turned toward the kitchen, and the recording ended at 12:04 a.m. because the motion sensor timed out and there was no more motion to record. I am 1,000 miles away. I am in a hotel room in a city I have never been to before, attending a professional conference that I have a badge for and a registration record for and a room key for and dinner receipts from that evening for. I am here and I am also, according to my security system, there. And I go home 2 days later and everything is exactly as I left it. Every light switch in the same position, every door locked, every window latched, my car in the same spot in the driveway with the same inch of dust on it, and nothing to tell me that anyone was inside or that anything happened. Nothing except the recording. Nothing except the 4 minutes and 4 seconds of video that I have watched more than 100 times since and which shows me, in my driveway, at midnight, on a night when I was nowhere near it, going home. Let me build the foundation of this properly. Let me give you the structure of the normal life this thing happened inside of so that the departure from normal lands with the full weight it deserves. I am 37 years old. I work in pharmaceutical sales, which is a job that requires regular travel, conferences, regional meetings, client visits, training events, and which means I am away from home between 8 and 12 nights a month, sometimes more. I bought my house 2 years before this happened, a 3-bedroom single-story in a quiet residential neighborhood, Nothing remarkable about it except that it is mine, and I have spent 2 years making it feel like mine. The security system was installed the month after I moved in, a full-featured system with exterior cameras on the front and back of the house, an interior camera in the main hallway covering the entry, and sensors on all ground floor windows and exterior doors. The cameras record motion triggered to local storage with cloud backup. The app on my phone lets me view live feeds and stored footage from anywhere. I check it when I travel, not obsessively, maybe once a day. A quick look at the live feeds to confirm the house is quiet, occasionally scrolling back through stored footage if a notification catches my attention. This is not a thing I do from anxiety. This is a thing I do from the same mild habitual diligence with which I check the weather or my bank balance, a small routine confirmation that the things I have invested in are functioning. I have had this system for 2 years. In 2 years, the stored footage has shown me a total of one notable event: a raccoon on the back porch that I found briefly charming and never thought about again. This is the baseline: a raccoon and 2 years of quiet. The conference is in Denver. I left on a Thursday morning by shuttle to the airport, left my car in the driveway, left the house locked and alarmed and confident in the complete vacancy of it, and flew to Denver and checked in and went to the Thursday evening welcome reception and had dinner with colleagues, and went to bed at 10:30 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 11:30 my home time, which is 90 minutes before what the footage shows. I wake up Friday morning to a notification from my security app. Motion detected, front exterior, 12:01 a.m. This is not unusual. The front exterior camera sometimes captures motion from cars passing on the street, headlights sweeping across it, and triggers a notification. I open the app. I tap the notification. The stored clip loads and I watch it, and I watch the clip twice more before I put the phone face down on the hotel mattress, and I sit very still in the early morning in Denver, and I try to understand what I have just seen. The clip begins at 12:01 a.m. with the empty driveway under the motion sensor light that activated as whatever triggered it approached. For the first 8 seconds, the driveway is empty, and I am almost ready to attribute this to a car passing, a false positive, the usual. And then headlights appear at the end of the driveway. My headlights. The specific twin ovals of my car's headlights. The same housing geometry, the same spacing, the same warm white. My car pulls into the driveway. It pulls in the way I pull in, slightly right of center, correcting at the last moment, a habit of mine that is specific enough that my neighbor once commented on it. The car stops. The engine cuts. The headlights go out. The motion sensor light illuminates the driveway, and the car in sharp flat white, and the driver's door opens, and a person gets out. The person is me, or it wears me, or it is so perfectly and completely me that the distinction is currently above my capacity to make. It is my height. It is my build. It is wearing a gray jacket I own, a specific Patagonia shell that I left in my closet before the trip. It is wearing dark jeans, my dark jeans, the ones with the frayed hem on the right leg. It walks toward the front door with my walk, which is a specific thing, which has a specific quality that I have seen in video recordings of myself before and which I would recognize. A slight forward lean, the weight slightly on the toes, a stride length that is longer than average. It is my walk. It walks to my front door and it reaches into the right jacket pocket, my right jacket pocket, on my jacket, my hands, and it takes out a key. It puts the key in the lock. It opens the door and it goes inside. I switch to the hallway camera. The timestamp on the hallway camera picks up at 12:02 a.m., 1 minute after the driveway, the delay of the door opening and the entry motion sensor activating. The hallway is dark for 1 second, and then the hallway light comes on, motion activated, the same light that comes on when I come home. And in the hallway light, I see myself walking from the front door toward the interior of the house. I see my face in the hallway camera. The hallway camera is positioned above the entry table at a downward angle, and it captures the face of anyone who walks beneath it, and it captures mine, and I am watching my face walk through my hallway at midnight from a hotel room in Denver, and the face is my face, and it shows nothing. No expression. Not the expression of arriving home after a day away. Not the slight decompression that a person's face does when it crosses the threshold into its own home. Not tiredness. Not alertness. Not any of the organic variability of a human face in motion. Smooth. Still. The face of something wearing a face rather than having one. Or the face of something that knows it is being filmed and is performing the surface of me without understanding the interior of it. It walks down the hallway, and it turns left toward the kitchen, and the motion sensor in the hallway loses it, and the recording ends, and the timestamp reads 12:04 a.m. I am in Denver. I am in a hotel room in Denver at 6:45 a.m. with my phone in my hands watching this clip for the third time. And I do things in a specific order that I think reflects the way a rational person processes a situation like this in real time. Which is not the way you would process it with time and distance, which is, first you look for the mistake, then you look for the explanation, and only when both of those fail do you sit with what you are actually looking at. I look for the mistake first. Is this the right camera? Yes. Is this the right date? Yes. Is this the right house? I know my driveway. I know my front door. I know my hallway. Yes. Is there any conceivable technical malfunction that would insert footage from another time into this clip? I spend 45 minutes on this question, and the answer is no. The timestamps are embedded in the recording, authenticated by the cloud system, not editable in the local footage, and the clip does not show artifacts consistent with edited or composite footage. Then I look for the explanation. A twin. I don't have a twin. A doppelganger. A person who resembles me closely enough to be indistinguishable on security footage. This is the explanation I try hardest to hold. This is the one I carry with me through the rest of the conference, through Friday's sessions, through Friday dinner, through Saturday morning, working it like a loose tooth, testing it. The jacket, the jeans, the frayed hem, the walk, the key. There is a key. It gets into my house with a key. Someone who resembles me and has a copy of my house key and knows where my car is and knows how I park it and owns my specific jacket and my specific jeans with the specific fraying on the right hem. I cannot build a person who has all of those things. I cannot make that person exist. But I try because the alternative is not a person and the alternative is not something I want to look at from a hotel room alone in Denver. I fly home Saturday evening. I take a cab from the airport. I sit in the back of the cab and I watch the city give way to my neighborhood through the window, and I feel something I don't have a clean word for, a reluctance that is more specific than general anxiety, a specific reluctance about entering my own house, about putting my key in the lock of my own front door, about crossing the threshold of the hallway that I watched something cross 2 nights ago. I pay the driver and I stand on my driveway for a moment and I look at my house. The exterior is exactly as I left it. The car is in the driveway where I left it. Every light off that I left off. I go in. I go through every room. This takes 20 minutes, and I am thorough in a way that I recognize is slightly beyond the normal threshold of caution, is in the specific territory of the kind of thoroughness that is really a ritual, really a way of using action to manage fear. Every room, every closet, under the beds, the garage, the basement. Nothing. Everything in its place. The gray jacket on its hook in the closet. The dark jeans folded on the shelf. I pick up the jeans, and I look at the right hem, and the fraying is there exactly as it always is. I put them back. I go to the kitchen, the room the figure walked toward, the room the hallway camera lost it going to, and I look at everything in it, and everything is exactly as I left it. The chair tucked under the table at the specific angle I tuck it. The coffee maker's clock blinking from when the power went out briefly, as it always does when I'm away, no one there to reset it. I am standing in my kitchen at 9 p.m. on a Saturday, and everything is normal and nothing is wrong, and I have spent 2 days in Denver being professionally functional and internally fragmented, and I am home now, and I should be relieved. I pour a glass of water. I sit at my kitchen table. I pick up my phone and I open the security app and I watch the clip one more time. And this time I watch it with the particular attention of someone who is home now, who has walked through this house, who has walked down this hallway and turned left into this kitchen. And I watch the figure do the same thing. And I notice, from the distance of having just done it myself, one thing I had not noticed in my first dozen viewings. When I come home, when I walk down that hallway and turn left into the kitchen, I reach for the light switch at the kitchen entrance immediately. It is a reflex, an automatic thing. My hand goes to the switch before I've even fully turned through the doorway. The hallway camera cannot see the kitchen, but it can see the kitchen doorway, and the light in the kitchen activates and spills back into the hallway doorway. And in every piece of security footage from the past 2 years of my living in this house, when I come home and walk down this hallway and turn into the kitchen light comes on. In this clip, the clip from midnight on Thursday, the figure turns into the kitchen doorway and the kitchen light does not come on. Whatever is in my kitchen in that recording is in my kitchen in the dark. I do not sleep that night. Not for the reason you might think. Not because I believe something is still in my house. I have checked the house and it is empty, and I believe the house is empty. I don't sleep because of the darkness. Because of what it means that the kitchen light didn't come on. Because a person coming home, even a person who looks exactly like me, would reach for the light switch. It is an automatic action. It is below conscious decision. You do not choose to turn on the light when you enter a room. You just do it because you need light, because you are a thing that needs light to navigate and to function. You turn on the light because darkness is a problem for you. Whatever walked through my house at midnight on a Thursday doesn't need the light. Whatever walked through my house at midnight on a Thursday went into my kitchen in complete darkness without hesitation, without stumbling, without the pause of a person adjusting to low light, and did whatever it went there to do in the dark. I have the recording. I have shown it to 3 people I trust. All 3 of them had the same experience watching it that I had. The discomfort of recognition, the sense of watching something that looks exactly like me that is not me, that is performing me from the outside without having access to the inside. One of them asked me if I had experienced any lost time around that period, any gaps in memory, any sense of having been somewhere I couldn't account for. I told him no. He said that was interesting, and he said it in a tone that was not as reassuring as he probably meant it to be. Another asked me if I had changed my locks. I have. I changed my locks the Sunday after I came home, and I have a new security code on the alarm, and I have looked at my car for the GPS tracker that a valet service might have put there or an attacker might have used to find me, and there is no tracker. I have changed everything that can be changed and left unchanged the thing that cannot, which is the fact that I watched myself come home on a night when I was not there, watched myself park the way I park, walk the way I walk, unlock my door the way I unlock it, wear my jacket and my jeans, walk down my hallway, and walk into my kitchen and stand there in the dark. For as long as the motion sensor stayed active, for as long as there was motion in my kitchen to detect, and then go still, I still travel for work. I have no choice about that. I check my security app every night I'm away. Every night. The footage shows me nothing unusual. My house sits quiet and dark and empty in my absence, and nothing comes to it, and nothing parks in my driveway, and nothing wears my face in my hallway. But I am aware, in a way I cannot turn off and have stopped trying to turn off, that it happened once. That whatever wanted to be in my house in my form, whatever needed to practice being me in my space, did so once and was recorded doing so, and that all of the other nights, all of the quiet footage, all of the empty driveways, those nights prove nothing about the next night, about what I'll see when I open the app in whatever hotel room I am in next month, about whether the motion sensor will trigger and the footage will load and I will watch myself come home again, this time to a house I'm not afraid to enter until I look at the kitchen doorway and wait for a light that doesn't come on. Story number 3. I want you to think about what it would take to scare you at a gas station. I want you to really think about that. Because a gas station is one of the most ordinary places in the world. Fluorescent lights, the smell of fuel, the specific transaction of filling a tank and paying for things, the low hum of the pumps and the refrigerator units inside, and the ambient noise of whatever road the station sits alongside. It is a background environment, a between places place, a place you don't really inhabit so much as pass through. It is almost specifically designed to be unfrightening. I want you to think about what would have to happen inside a gas station to genuinely, deeply, physically scare you. Because what happened to me happened in one of those stations, under those fluorescent lights, in the ordinary smell of fuel and convenience store food, and I felt my hands stop working when I read what was on that note. I felt my legs stop being dependable. I felt the specific cold of a fear that does not arrive gradually, but arrives all at once, fully formed, the fear of a thing that is already happening, that has been happening since before you knew to be afraid of it. A man behind a counter handed me a folded note, and on the note were 11 words, and those 11 words told me that the thing I was afraid of, if I had known enough to be afraid of anything, was already in my car. Here is the whole night. Here is all of it. It is a Friday in early October. I have been driving for almost 4 hours, coming back from a trip to see a college friend who moved to a rural part of the state 3 years ago, and whose hospitality always runs longer than the drive. And I leave his place at 7, and I intend to make good time, and by 10 o'clock I have not made as good time as I intended, because there was construction on the main route, and I detoured on secondary roads that were slower and darker and took me through country I didn't know, small towns, and long stretches of farmland and road without streetlights. And by 10 I am tired and running low on fuel, and I pull into the first gas station I see. It is a standalone station on a state route, a single-bay building with 4 pumps, brightly lit in the surrounding dark in the way that isolated stations are lit, the kind of brightness that makes the darkness around it deeper by contrast. The lot is mostly empty. My car at the pump, a pickup at the far end that may or may not be fueling, a single car parked off to the side of the building near the air pump. I get out and I stretch. My lower back has been complaining for an hour, and I swipe my card and I start the pump and I go inside to use the bathroom and to buy something to keep me awake for the last hour of drive. Inside is what inside always is at these stations. The refrigerators along the back wall, the snack shelves, the rotating hot dog machine that I never eat from, the counter with its display of lottery tickets and small things in packaging, and behind the counter an attendant. This one is an older man, maybe late 50s, with a thick gray mustache and reading glasses pushed up on his forehead, and the specific quality of alertness of someone who has been running a small business alone at night for years and has learned to read people quickly. He looks at me when I come in. Nothing unusual about that. He keeps looking at me for a moment after the initial glance, a beat longer than the usual acknowledging look of a convenience store attendant, and then he goes back to whatever he was doing. I notice this and I file it as nothing. I use the bathroom. I come out and I pick up a large coffee and an energy bar and I bring them to the counter and I set them down and I take out my wallet and the man behind the counter is looking at me again with that same extra beat of attention. And now I can see that his expression has something in it that it didn't have when I came in. Not alarmed, not quite, but alert in a specific way. The way a person's face goes when they have decided to do something they are not certain how to do. He rings up my coffee and my energy bar slowly, more slowly than necessary. And he takes my card and he processes it, and he hands it back and he hands me my receipt. And in the fold of the receipt, sandwiched inside it, is a small square of paper. Not a business card, not a printed slip. A handwritten note, a piece torn from a notepad, 4 inches square, folded once, and he presses it into my hand along with the receipt with a brief, firm pressure that is not incidental. That is the pressure of intention, of someone making sure the thing transfers. And he meets my eyes for one moment, and then looks away. I feel the note in my hand, and I am confused in the specific way of someone who has not yet understood what is happening, but whose body is beginning to receive information the mind is still processing. I pick up my coffee and my energy bar, and I walk toward the door, and I open the note while I am walking, unfolding it with my thumb, and I stop walking when I read it. 11 words. Clear handwriting. Unhurried. The handwriting of someone who wrote this before I came in, or who writes quickly and without panic. 11 words. The man who followed you in is still in your back seat. I stand in the door of the gas station with the note in my hand and the night air on my face and my car visible at the pump through the glass, and I do not move. I read the note again. I read it a third time with the specific repetition of a person hoping that the sentence will change on a later reading, that what they think they're seeing is a misread, a typo, something other than what it plainly says. It says what it says. I look at my car. I can see the windshield from here, and I can see the driver's seat through it, empty, and the front passenger seat, empty, and the passenger side rear window, which shows me nothing, shows me only the reflection of the pump lights in its glass. I cannot see into the back seat from here. I cannot see into the back seat from anywhere except inside the car or through the rear window from outside, and to get to either of those positions I have to be near the car. I turn around. The attendant is watching me. He has come to the end of the counter, which puts him closer to me, and he is watching me with the expression of someone who has done the thing they decided to do and is now waiting to see what follows from it. I walk back to the counter. I hold up the note. I say, "What does this mean?" He says it quietly, in a voice designed not to carry further than the two of us. "When you were at the pump, before you came inside, a man came out of the dark from the side of the lot, over there by the air pump, and went to your car. He opened the back door and got in. He lies down in the back on the floor. He watches the lot until you go inside, and then he is still. He is still there. I waited to see if he would come out, but he doesn't come out. I am very still at the counter. I am processing this with the particular quality of processing that the body performs when it receives information that changes the geometry of a situation from safe to unsafe, information that reclassifies the last several minutes retroactively, that makes the gas station parking lot and the car at the pump and the quiet of the lot into something else. Something with a person-shaped threat lying on the floor of my car waiting for me to get back in. I say, "Did you see his face?" He shakes his head. He says he kept his head down. He says, "I didn't call the police yet because I didn't want him to hear me." He says, "I wrote the note instead." He says it in the specific tone of someone who made an unconventional decision in a high-pressure moment and is aware it could be judged either way. I say, "Okay." I stand at the counter and I breathe and I think, and I am aware that my coffee is cooling in my hand and that this is a ridiculous thing to be aware of, but the mind does what the mind does when it is trying to stay functional. The pump is still running. My card has already been charged. When the pump clicks off, the car will sit there with a full tank, and the man who followed me in will be lying on the floor of the back seat waiting for the door to open and me to get in and the car to move. And whatever happens after that happens in the dark on a state route with no other cars and no other stations and nothing between here and home except the country I don't know. I know what happens after that, or I know the shape of what happens after that, the outline of it. And the outline is bad in the specific way that preemptive understanding of violence is bad. The attendant is watching me. He says, "Do you want me to call now?" "Yes." I say yes, and he picks up the phone and he calls, and I stand at the window and I watch my car at the pump, and the pump clicks off while he is on the phone, and I watch the car sit there in the lot with its full tank and its dark back windows, and nothing moves. 2 county sheriff's deputies arrive in 11 minutes. I count the minutes. I stand at the window and I count them, and in those 11 minutes the car does not move and no one gets out of the car. The deputies pull in with their lights on, but not their sirens, and they approach my car from both sides simultaneously, and one of them opens the back door on the driver's side, and the other has his hand on his weapon, and they pull a man out of the back seat floor of my car. I watch this from inside the station. I watch them pull him out, and I watch them have him against the side of the car, and I watch the handcuffing, and the whole time I am very still and very cold in a way that has nothing to do with the temperature. The deputies come in afterward and take my statement, and they tell me that the man has a history, which they do not fully describe, but which their tone describes for them. And they tell me he was found with items in his possession which they also do not fully describe, and one of them, the older one, tells me as a kind of closing statement that it was good I had someone looking out for me. I want to tell you that this is where the story ends, that this is the complete horror of it, that having the man found and removed and charged resolves the thing and lets me drive home shaken but intact and wake up the next morning with a story I'll tell for years over the specific quality of nervous laughter that close call stories produce. And in the practical sense, it is resolved. In the practical, criminal sense. But there is the drive home, and the drive home is when I understand that resolved is not the same as over, that some things get resolved on the surface and leave residue underneath that doesn't resolve. The deputies offer to wait while I drive out, and they follow me to the highway entrance, and then they turn back. I drive alone. I drive with all the interior lights I can get on in that car on, which is not many, and I drive with the rear view mirror angled down so that I can see the back seat clearly in the ambient highway light. And I drive the hour home doing this, and the back seat is empty all the way home, and I pull into my driveway, and I do not get out of the car immediately. I sit in my car in my driveway, and I think about 11 words on a piece of paper. I think about a man crouching in the dark at the side of a gas station lot watching me at the pump, watching me go inside, watching the lot until I'm gone from the windows, and then moving. The calculation in that, the patience of it. I think about where I would be right now if the attendant had not written the note. I think about the fact that the attendant wrote the note because of something in my face, something in the way I looked when I walked in, something that he read as not knowing, as unsuspecting, as the specific face of someone who needs to be told. I think about how close the margin was. The margin between the note and no note. Between the man behind the counter deciding to act and deciding it wasn't his business. Between me reading those 11 words and me getting in that car and driving out into the dark of a state route with someone lying on the floor behind me. There are things I do now that I did not do before that night. I check the back seat before I get in my car. Every time. In my driveway at home, in parking lots, at gas stations, at every location, every time, without exception. I do not use the pump and go inside in the dark at isolated stations. If I need to use the facilities and get fuel, I do the fuel last. I leave the car in view. I sit where I can see it through the windows. I park under lights. I look at what is around me when I stop. What is at the edges of the lit area? What is in the dark beyond it? These are not neurotic habits. These are the habits of someone who was almost in a car on a state route in the dark with a stranger on the floor behind them and who learned, in 11 words on a folded piece of paper, exactly how close almost can be. I went back to that station 6 weeks later. I don't fully know why, partly to thank the attendant properly, partly because I had been thinking about him and about what he did in a way that needed acknowledging in person. He was there. I walked in and he recognized me, and he said nothing, but his expression said that he remembered. I bought a coffee I didn't need, and I said thank you, and I meant it in a register that the word doesn't usually operate in. Meant it with the full weight of what the thanks was for. Meant it in a way that he received. I could see he received it. He nodded. He said, I always watch the lot. He said it simply, without drama, without the quality of wanting credit. Just, I always watch the lot. The specific dignity of a person who does the job of paying attention and does it as a matter of course, without ceremony, without knowing on any given night whether it will matter. On that night it mattered. I drive home. I drive home in the fall dark, and I check my mirror, and the back seat is empty, and the highway is empty, and the state route is empty, and I am alone in my car in the way that alone is supposed to mean, and I drive all the way home with the particular quality of gratitude that has no adequate expression, the gratitude of understanding the shape of what did not happen, the The specific geometry of the life you are still in because someone at a gas station counter decided to write a note. I pull into my driveway and I check the mirror one more time before I get out, which I always do now and always will. And the back seat is empty and I get out and I go inside and I lock the door. And I think about the man lying on the floor behind my seat in the dark, waiting, patient, quiet. And I think about how quiet he was, how still, how the lot was empty and the station was lit, and to anyone who didn't know he was there, everything looked fine. Everything looked exactly like a normal night at a gas station. A car at a pump, a man inside buying coffee. Everything normal, everything ordinary, everything fine, except for the man watching from behind the counter who always watches the lot. Except for him.